Tonight, star prosecution witness Michael Cohen facing a scathing second day of cross-examination as former President Trump's defense team tries to paint him as a spurned former employee, desperate for payback.
I truly hope that this man ends up in prison.
The jury hearing Cohen on his podcast, appearing in search of vengeance.
Revenge is a dish best served cold. And you better believe I want this man to go down and rot inside for what he did to me and my family.
Tension in the room building to a dramatic moment. Trump attorney Todd Blanche accusing Cohen of lying about a key part of his testimony. Just 2 days ago, Cohen telling the jury unequivocally that Mr. Trump's bodyguard, Keith Schiller, passed the phone to Mr. Trump on October 24th, 2016 at 8:02 p.m. Cohen says he informed Mr. Trump at the time the deal to pay off Stormy Daniels would be done. Blanche today raising his voice saying that was a lie, showing the jury never before seen text messages suggesting the call was for another purpose entirely. Cohen had earlier reached out to Schiller for help dealing with a 14-year-old prank caller, and Schiller texted back telling Cohen to call him. Logs show a call on October 24th that lasted just 97 seconds. The defense's clear implication, the phone was never passed to Mr. Trump. Cohen appearing blindsided. Blanche grilling him. That was a lie. You did not talk to President Trump. You talked to Keith Schiller. You can admit it. Cohen responding, no, sir, I don't know that it's accurate. Cohen adding, I believe I also spoke to Mr. Trump about the Stormy Daniels matter. Blanche shooting back, we are not asking what you believe. This jury does not want to hear what you think happened. Cohen's credibility key to the state's case, as he is the only one who has testified the former president had advanced knowledge of the plan to pay off Daniels to protect his campaign and then signed off on a scheme to pay Cohen back, allegedly falsifying business records to disguise his reimbursements. Mr. Trump has pleaded not guilty, as his defense attorneys have argued nothing was falsified, and once again challenging prosecutors' theory today that the former president only cared about shielding his campaign from Daniels' damaging story. Blanche pushing Cohen about Mr. Trump's reaction the first time the former president learned of Daniels' shopping her story. Blanche asking, the first thing that President Trump said to you was that his family wouldn't like that very much. Cohen saying, that's true. The self-described former Trump fixer turned foe maintaining his composure on the stand when pressed at length about his criminal history. Cohen has been convicted of lying under oath and disbarred. The defense arguing he has a motivation to lie now and a history of doing it. Quote, you lied under oath, correct? Blanche asking him. Yes, sir, Cohen says. The defense today saying Cohen is also not telling the full story about his desire for a White House job, which Mr. Trump never offered him. You were disappointed that after all the work that you had done for President Trump for 9.5 years, nobody, including President Trump, offered you a position in the White House, Blanche asked. That's not accurate, Cohen said.
I think it was a very interesting day. It was a fascinating day, and it shows what a scam this whole thing is.
Laura, let's circle back if we can for a moment. When the defense accused Cohen of lying under oath about that phone call, was there any sense of the impact?
Lester, the jury was paying very close attention to that entire exchange. It was a real blow to prosecutors, no doubt about it. Now, Michael Cohen will be back on the stand for more testimony on Monday. Lester?
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.